Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I wanted to show you some sewing projects that I've been working on lately. Well, some of them latelier than others. First we have this coronavirus mask, and it was my first attempt at making one. So it's not the neatest, but it actually looks kind of cute, kind of decent. It fits, but it could fit better. My mom is making some that are of a different type. Tell me if you can actually hear me through this. But I made one, and it needs to be washed before I wear it. But yeah, also I touch my face like a lot. Also I did about 7 hours of hand sewing dog clothes yesterday, and we'll start with the simple ones, which are these socks, but they actually go up to here. Um, on here on these, and one of them is like very form fitted, as you can see, and it was hard to pull up all the way, so I made this one a lot looser, and it's like not at all form fitting because it should be like that. Then I made this pair of leggings, and this top, which actually looks kind of cute. I was a little bit skeptical about doing this sort of 5-minute crafts type of sewing, and as you can see, the crotch of it is a little bit low because of that, but other than that, like, if you don't look super close, it's fine. Basically what I did was I used t-shirt material, and to make the more loose fitting sock, which I think is easier to put on, you just cut out about a rectangle the same length, and then you make it more of a triangle at the bottom, or tapered, so that it is wider at the top than at the bottom, and so it looks more like a sock. And you just use the doll to measure. And for the pants, basically just trace a loose outline, and they'll become more 3D once you sew them together, but just a loose outline. And same for the top, trace kind of for her, because she's a little bit bigger chested than most Barbies, I think. She's a Tinkerbell model or something like that. I made hers kind of more triangle shaped because I didn't want it to be boxy. But yeah, you basically just cut out a rectangle, or like with mine was tapered on the bottom, and then you cut out a top and an armhole, and then sew that together. And obviously all the sewing should be done inside out. It's two-colored on the front and the back. And this whole outfit set only probably took me 2 hours, and I was hand sewing. So if you actually use a machine and are smart, it will take like maybe 20 minutes. Make sure to use stretchy material when working with Barbie, though, because she isn't very flexible, so her clothes need to be very flexible unless you're going to do something else. And all of these items don't require fasteners. The other one that I did was a lot more complicated, and it took 5 to 7 hours. I'm not going to put it on her because it does have fasteners, but I don't trust them. And it's this dress that's kind of inspired by the Gone with the Wind era. So Scarlett O'Hara, it's kind of inspired by that. So the front, we have a loosely pleated panel that has a bottom layer that has blue and silver stars and a gold bead. Then there's gold beading at the waist. It's only fastened here and here. These gold beads around this sort of square rectangular neckline are more individual. The shoulder beads are like individual, and then the front beads are in chunks because I didn't want to spend as much time on it. The back has 3 tiers of ruffles, so from the side it looks very imposing, like this. The bottom tier is the same as the front with the beading, and then the second tier up is blue stars, and the third tier is silver stars. And so the way that I made this dress, in case you want to do that, is these the back pleats are all 12 inches in width, and then because I was using a plaid material. I didn't measure, I just went by the lines on the plaid, but I know that the bottom one is 7 inches. And then I'm gonna estimate that if we say that 2 small squares is an inch, then the next one is 7 minus 2.5, which would be 7 minus 2 is 5. So this one would be 4.5 inches. And then 4.5 inches minus 2.5 would be 1.5 inches. And for these ruffles, basically, as you can see right here, I just sewed them as tightly to each other as I could by hand, so it's just super tight. And then for the front, I cut out another rectangle that was 7 by 12, and I just really, I stuck this, basically I pinned the back of this to the Barbie, and then I wrapped the other fabric around the front and pinned it so that it would evenly fill up the space with a little bit extra for fastening. Um, and then I took a rectangle of fabric that went around the Barbie about enough that it would go fully around enough to cross over completely in the back, and didn't do anything super special to it, but I just sewed that onto the skirt, and I didn't fasten the skirt to itself on the sides because I wanted to be able to put it on her. The sleeves basically were just 2 rectangles I had left over from cutting this part out, and I sewed them up most of the way, as you can see here. And then there was the little flat area that I didn't sew up when I was turning them right side out, and I just sewed that area to her bodice. And the beading, I just did it like beading. Um, there's a little, because it's crossed over a little bit, there is a little pleat right here, but an improved pattern wouldn't require that. I just did so that it wouldn't look so bunchy because I cut out a bunch of stuff. And then for fastening, there's a large snap closing the back flap, and then there's a small snap connecting the big fluffy back skirt to the front skirt right here, and then there's another small snap here connecting this skirt, the back skirt to the front skirt and the side again, and this snap I folded over so you couldn't, like, you see where it's attached, but you couldn't see this. So it looks more like a skirt seam than it looks like raw edges. And for all the raw edges, when I was cutting up the pieces, I cut them out with pinking shears so that they wouldn't fray as much and so that I would not have to hem them. And so yeah, this one took a while because I was hand sewing, and because it's so small, it would be, I think, harder to machine sew this. Also, I don't know how to make ruffles on a machine, which is a little bit sad. I should know because I'm a seamstress, not for a profession, but I just sew a lot. Um, so yeah, that's the stuff that I've been sewing since quarantine. Oh, and I also made pocket pillows. Um, but I'm too lazy to go get them. So I made 9 pillows. They are 2 squares of felt fabric or flannel fabric, just a soft fabric that isn't super silky, but it's pretty thick, and it's the kind of stuff where you wouldn't need to hem it. I did hem it, and then I used the plaid fabric that was also used on the dress, which I did hem to make a rectangle, and then I sewed that onto the center front panel of the pillow, which is just 2 rectangles sewed together with stuffing. But I only sewed 3 sides on it to make a pocket, and then to make the top of the pocket, I cut a triangle out of fabric, hemmed the triangle, and then sewed the top of the triangle down just above the top of the pocket, making sure not to sew the pocket shut with the triangle. And I sewed a button onto the square before I sewed it onto the second square. So I sewed a button onto the tiny square, then I attached the tiny square to the larger square, but only on 3 sides. I sewed And then I pinned the triangle part where it was going to be on the pocket, cut a hole so that it would have a hole where the button was, sewed a whip stitch around that hole to make it a buttonhole and so it wouldn't fray. And then after hemming, I hemmed before I made the buttonhole, then I attached the triangle to the top of that. And then right sides together, so the side with the pocket facing the right side, sewing around the giant, like the bigger rectangle, which was a square. Then I turned it right side out and I stuffed them with fabric scraps, which makes them a little bit more firm, and also helps lessen fabric waste. And then I gave them to children. Well, I gave two of them to some twins that our family knows, and I have three lined up for three little girls and two for some siblings. I just haven't delivered them yet. Doll clothes are for me though. So yeah, that's what I've been sewing. I hope you enjoyed this video, that you're inspired by it, and that you guys are doing some crafty things in your quarantine.